Hello, everybody. My name is Ryunn Eldred, and welcome to the On Our podcast. I am here with my co-host today, Razgriz the BossFoss. How you doing today, Roz?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little tired. It's the end of the day. Cracking open a cold wine on a Tuesday night.
Tuesday. I just realized you're wearing a Lilo and Stitch because I've been sitting here for like the last few minutes trying to figure out what the
I tried.
what was on your shirt. So that's adorable. Um, what have you been up to since the last R&R podcast? Let's just go ahead and get this
Oh
small talk out of the
goodness.
way.
Last one we did was what?
That is a good question. Let me look real quick. I want to say it was a couple weeks ago because we've missed a couple of weeks worth of episodes, but it's also because we've been very busy in both of
Wait,
our personal lives.
yeah.
I guess I'm gonna have to actually search up R&R real quick. Ba-ba-ba-bum. That did absolutely nothing for us, for me. Oh no. Oh no. There we go. There it's at. Okay. The last episode we did was Halloween talk on Halloween. So it's been about a week.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, okay. So what have you been up to since October 31st?
Oh, let's see. I mean, the most recent thing I did was I went and saw Sabrina Carpenter.
Nice, nice. And I know me and you have personally talked about that, but for the audience sake, how was it?
It was good. The wife and we went to San Francisco, not really with any plans other than she wanted to see Sabrina Carpenter. That was about the only thing. And what ended up happening is we it was like an hour before the show. There was only floor tickets available. So that's what we ended up buying it. And it was a lot more than I wish it was.
Was there any part of the performance that like really stood out that you enjoyed? That was like outside of like the songs or anything? Because most performers they have like little bits or stuff like that.
I mean, the entire thing, it was like it was a story. It was the short and sweet TV show instead of uh the what she normally, like, concert wise thing, you know? And yeah, I do have a funny story that we found out afterwards. I'm kind of glad that we didn't know at the time of, but apparently in front of us, same side of the stage, because the stage was like this long walkway out to um a heart.
Hmm.
Um, this lady, after the openers, she crouched down. Now, having people crouch down in the pit is not unusual, right?
Right.
They've been there. Some of these people have been there since like 6 o'clock in the morning, and we're talking about like 8 p.m. right now. And so she crouched down. People are like, okay, she's just tired. So they're giving her a little bit of space, for her to be on the ground. And finally somebody looked down and saw that there was this big ass puddle that they were now stepping in. They're like, where did the water come from?
Oh
Turns
no.
out,
Oh
turns out,
no.
the girl had crouched down, managed to take her underwear off, and proceeded to pee all over the floor.
Oh
Now,
no.
I feel absolutely bad for her because of course she immediately got kicked out once security got notified, and the cleaning people had to come in and like clean that area. And I feel bad because I'm pretty sure she was just so sloshed that she has no idea that she did that.
I mean, you could easily walk to a bathroom though. It doesn't matter how
Right.
messed up you get.
Like the people were very nice and they were like, yeah, uh she could have just left to go to the bathroom. Like we were allowing people to leave and come back. But no, she just apparently
Was it an indoor stadium concert or was it an outdoor one? Because the last concert I went to
Chase
like a
Center.
month.
It was the Chase Center, so it's an indoor basketball arena.
Nah,
Yeah. So
that's so bad.
yeah. Now I feel bad, but
I feel bad on the part of spending as much money as you do for tickets like that.
so some of the people did manage to get the floor tickets for like $100. So
Still, I mean, granted, regardless, the lady shouldn't have squatted down and peed all over the floor. Her getting
no.
kicked out is her own reason, but I would hate, like, let's say you're a part of her group and you all got kicked out because of that one person's antics.
Yeah. No, I mean I get it. That would have really sucked.
Oh, that would have been horrible.
But anywho's.
Any Housers.
So how are you doing? What's new with
Um,
you?
so I think during Halloween talk I mentioned that Dragon Age Veilguard was coming out and a bunch of other
Yes.
stuff. I didn't complete any of the horror games that I set out to do for Spooktober. Outside of I did do season 1 and 2 of Telltale's The Walking Dead for the Nerdgasmic Goodfellas.
Right.
So those were finished, but I still have 2 more seasons to go before the whole game's done, which has been
Right.
great. Like reliving Telltale's The Walking Dead has been like really good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as of recording, because today is the 12th, so I beat Dragon Age Inquisition on the 11th. Fully beat it, Trespasser DLC, everything. Have
Right.
started Veilguard,
Excuse me
which
one
is
second.
going to lead into our main topic of today's, like, all of our little small talks and discussions. Finally started Veilguard. I'm really excited and really happy. Um, There's still a lot of games I'm trying to finish, like Death Stranding's Director's Cut, which I'm gonna work on tonight, and like just a bunch of other games I want to close out before the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But I like so this was the first time I beat Inquisition, and I am really, really glad. And I know with like role-playing games, canon in the Dragon Age games is very shaky because there's so many options, so many choices. It's what I love about BioWare games, and even BioWare themselves has stated that the canon world for Dragon Age is a little on the fence. There's like recommended ways to play, like with Dragon Age Origins, for like the best impactful story, play as a dwarf. For the best impactful story for Dragon Age 2, play as a mage hawk. And then with Inquisition, it was playing as a female elf that romances Solus, one of your companions. And so that's what I did for this Let's Play. And oh my god, the ending to the Trespasser DLC that sets up Veilguard. There's like a good 15-minute like conversation between you and Solus where you guys are alone.
Mm-hmm.
And it literally gave me goosebumps, and this like the writing for the narrative and everything was just so good. And I felt like after I beat the game and I was sitting there for a minute reflecting on the story, I felt so bad because the game came out in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't play start this game until 10 years after the game was released.
Right.
And for a person who loves BioWare games, that's really bad, especially since I loved the first Dragon Age so much. But it was such a beautiful story, and it was probably out of all the games I've played this year, was like one of the best stories, or even just one of the best game endings. Because I'm thinking back to everything I've beaten this year, and I beat Days Gone, I've beaten Inquisition, Dead Space. This had like one of the best stories and was one of my favorite playthroughs I've done this year.
Hmm.
So there was that. I'm happy I'm starting Veilguard. More people have gotten Phasmophobia in the group, so Phasmophobia should be kicking off here soon. Logan has told me he's just waiting on us to let him know when we're ready, and he's happy to jump in. Same thing with Chris. John is a little on the fence, but he has it and is ready, I think. So we're getting stuff rolling out for the group channel, which I personally like. It's just having 6 different members, all with different time schedules and different personal jobs and stuff like that, gets a little hard and challenging.
Right.
But yeah, that's how I've been doing good. Been working, getting ready for the Thanksgiving holiday and deciding what I'm gonna do with that. I just had to fix my car, so funds are a little low, but I might be traveling for Thanksgiving. I have no idea if I could even afford to do it or if my car could afford the wear and tear at the given moment. So that's where I'm sitting at. I guess I'll let you guys know how it goes next week in the next podcast. But before we jump into all the wonderful topics we'll talk about today, this is your friendly reminder that you could catch the vidcast version of the podcast on YouTube under the Ryunn Eldred channel. And you can find this podcast on all your podcast streaming applications like Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. We're everywhere. But before we jump into the thick of what today's topic is, which is inclusive game design, is there any little topics, articles, story time, anything you feel like bringing in?
No, nothing really comes to mind at the moment.
Nothing really comes to mind.
Um,
Um, before we jump into the inclusive game design talk, what was the name of that game? You shared it to me, and it's coming to Steam. And it was like a co-op survival. I saw another ad for it, and it just looks so good.
I do not know what you're talking about.
Great. So let me finish these scour Skittles. I made a bad choice to take a bite of them, but yeah. I just realized something. I'm missing a cat here. Maybe it's in Matt's room.
Could be. Could be. Hard to
Not my
say.
problem.
Hard to tell.
So, inclusive game design has been in more than just Dragon Age Veilguard, but recently I've been seeing articles, posts within the fan groups that I follow for Dragon Age, where people are really upset about the fact that they have inclusive game designs, like being able to select what your gender is, your pronouns, stuff like that. And I know me, you, and Max Mayhem, we had a very, not heated, but we had a very lengthy conversation about it and our like opinions or representation for it and all that, which I just decided, that would make a really good podcast episode. And I kind of wanted to touch base with it with you again, because we both kind of share the same ideology on it. So we're not going to get like a conflicting take. But
Hmm.
role playing games that are meant to for you as the player to be inserted into a story where you kind of have a good representation because you're taking on the role of somebody. And a lot of people, is me included, when you play a role playing game, you tend to base your character off of yourself.
Yes.
So when I'm thinking inclusive game design, which in this term means actively creating games that are accessible and welcoming to a broad range of players, regardless of their background, ability, or or identity through representation. How do you feel? Because again, we feel similar, but I'm gonna give you a chance to speak. How do you feel personally about like that? the diversity in characters and accessibility features.
I mean, it personally doesn't bother me. So I want to make sure it's clear. I do care. I do care. Um, Let me make sure I bring you fully up to my screen so that way I can stare directly at you.
Ah, great.
I
Let's have
I
direct
do
eye contact.
I do care. It doesn't affect me. Typically, when I'm playing a game, I make a more or less straight white guy, because I am a straight white guy. In the event that there was any question about it,
I don't know. I
um,
question it every day. Every time you bring in your wife, who we've never seen. No.
yeah, no. Uh, I think at one point I had made a female character just because in some aspect, some games, you need to play as the other gender just to feel what the developers were intending. For example, if you are a girl and you're playing Fallout New Vegas, when you go to Caesar's Legion's camp, um, you're treated like absolute shit because you're a girl.
Hmm.
And I didn't know that until Katie played New Vegas and she got to that point. And basically, they were like, if it wasn't for the fact that Caesar invited you, we would be enslaving you right now and doing whatever we want. It's like, damn, okay.
Gives you a little bit more of an incentive for hating the bad guys.
Yeah, in the event that you didn't think that they were already bad people. It's like siding with the Institute, Fallout 4. Anyway, but it doesn't, it's literally not any skin off of my back, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't, having the inclusivity and diversity, it doesn't change anything about the game to me. All it's doing is just showing, hey, the developers care that there's people who feel differently and want to put more of themselves in the game. And I feel like all that's doing is just saying, hey, this game is for everybody to feel like they're a part of this game. So when you're making your character, you're not being stuck in like these very specific, if you're a guy, you're only attracted to women, or if you're a girl, you're only attracted to men. You can be, hey, I'm a male looking character who is female but looks male
Like in
and it,
Cyberpunk.
and is attracted to guys or is attracted to girls or isn't attracted to anybody, which is totally fine, or is attracted to both, which is fine again.
Yeah, because I was gonna say I know before Cyberpunk 2077, because Cyberpunk 2077 is the first game that I know mentally that had the inclusive game design where where they allowed you to be a male with female reproductive parts or a female with male reproductive parts and then everything else for that. I know a lot of the biggest things were like role playing games where they forced you to be male or like your only choice was male or female. So I know like being younger and hearing people complain about that because I want to say it was the first Fable game. In the first Fable, you were only able to be male, and I remember hearing people like having the want to be able to be a female protagonist and all that because females can be adventurers too and everything. Which I think was my mom's actual thing about it because I think the first time I ever heard about that was from my mom playing the original Fable on the OG Xbox. And then I know when Cyberpunk or not Cyberpunk, but I know when I want to say it was Mass Effect 2. No, Mass Effect 1 allowed same-sex relations, right? I can't remember if the first Mass Effect did or didn't.
I don't, I don't think so.
No, because I know in Mass Effect 1 you could only romance Caden if you were a female shepherd, but in 3 they made it to where you could be a male and romance Caden as well.
Hmm.
So it's like I know over time I've kind of been more aware of it, Sims, stuff like that. Like I launched Sims 4 the other day and they added in an update where you now have pronouns that are he, she, they, them, all that.
Right.
And then other inclusive game designs. And then I know with Dragon Age, Dragon Age and BioWare games in general have started adding the inclusivity with it all,
Hmm.
which I think really kicked in with Inquisition. Inquisition and Mass Effect 3 were the ones that really started pulling in the inclusive game design. And then Andromeda had its inclusive. Because Andromeda was the first BioWare game I played that had like the full on where it was
Hmm.
prominent. But I know with a lot of people are complaining because Veilguard, there is like cutscenes in which one of the characters I haven't encountered the character yet, so I don't know the name, but it's the Quinari that is non-binary.
Hmm.
And there's like a whole section of the game because the Quinari they follow the Kun, Qun, which is like their kind of religion and their morals and all that. And by the Quinari being non-binary, it goes against what they believe. So there is a whole section of the game. I think it's if you romance the character. I don't know if it's in it otherwise, but there's a full-on discussion about what non-binary is and all this. And I've been seeing it thrown in one of the Facebook like fan pages of people just complaining about it
Hmm.
because games are usually targeted towards younger audiences, towards kids and everything. Even despite the fact that Dragon Age is a rated M game,
Right.
um, people are having like an issue with it because they're trying to make it out to be like the inclusive game design is what they're trying to tell through the storytelling. They're trying to make it a bigger thing than what it is, in my opinion. In my opinion, the people I see complaining about it are trying to make it a bigger thing than what it is. Because I feel like, especially if you're romancing the character, then it is part of the storytelling because it's
Right.
character development, it's character growth, it's something that means something to the character, which through representation, that dialogue choice in the game and hearing the character speak on that is the character speaking on to other people who feel that way. I'm like running circles trying to figure out what I'm saying. I just got off work, so I'm a little mush brained and I haven't
You're
eaten yet
good.
today. Well, I'm eating Skittles as my nutritious meal of the day. But I know when we talked to Matt, when Matt joined in on the conversation that we had off podcast about this, he was one of the people that was concerned about this stuff being represented in kind of kid media,
Right.
TV shows, movies, stuff like that.
Right.
I don't know, this is what I started thinking of. Hold on. Ugh. I don't know if Fortnite has character skins that are kind of based off of it. I know they have
Um,
like very rainbowy characters and anything, but I don't know if Fortnite outright has any LGBT characters.
not to my knowledge. Excuse me.
Well, the auto it looks like they had like a Rainbow Royale. So I want to say yes and no. Because it looks like it was a thing through content creators. But I mean, they have rainbowy characters that could represent in that aspect of the way. So, how do you feel about games like that bring introducing characters of a diverse representation?
Is this a different? So, when you had
So,
asked me earlier, I was kind of okay.
okay, so I guess I am re-asking the same question I already asked.
Yes.
So let me rephrase it because I don't think it really needs to be rephrased because all I'm simply saying is how do you feel on representation in, let's say, media that's targeted towards a younger audience and youth? Because that also seems to be a hot topic for people.
So in the conversation that we had had, the concern was about this representation being in media that is more aimed towards children, correct?
Yes, which I believe like a abrupt example that Max brought in was like Disney.
Yeah,
Him and his daughter watched like a Disney movie where there was a lesbian character.
yes. Or
That
gay
was
character.
like
I
yeah,
don't know,
which
but
I
it's the main character.
yes,
Personally, that's cool. It That's cool to me because what I feel it's doing is showing kids that hey, this is a normal thing. It's okay to have these feelings. If you are attracted to somebody of the same gender, that's cool. That's fine. That's normal. And so having the representation, I feel, is it's okay. It does it change the outlook of the story? No, not in my personal opinion. I have not personally seen the thing that Max was talking about. But I don't think it changes anything. And if they want to be inclusive, more power to them. I mean, I want people to feel like they are human beings. Like
not
nobody should.
being outcasted or
Yeah,
looked down upon because of their personal preferences.
right. And we were talking about it in our discussion about growing up, even me and you, which I mean, we're not that old. Growing
Thank you.
growing up, uh, being gay was seen as a taboo.
Taboo.
And so having it be more around and more like, hey, it's okay. It's you want to be gay, be gay. Then that is okay. That is normal. It is a normal thing. Or at least it's not as taboo of a thing now, which I feel is good because there will be people I don't want kids to feel like, oh, I'm attracted to my best friend. I want to kiss my best friend. Th- okay, if you are attracted to them, that is an okay thing. Now, of course, other things would come up from that conversation, but I want the kids to not feel like they are outcasts for it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that that perfectly answers the question, which I full-heartedly agree with you. Sorry, I'm clearing out my throat. I feel like I'm starting to get sick, and quite possibly eating sour Skittles is not the best thing for my already sore throat.
No.
But I just wanted to snack on something because I was very hungry. So,
Also, to everybody listening, I do apologize if we are not fully explaining some ideas. If you guys have a question or you're wanting us to actually elaborate on some of these things, if you are listening on Spotify or any of the other podcast locations that this podcast is going to, um, Rune has, well, we have the YouTube channel that you can watch the vidcast, and I strongly encourage you guys to, comment, let us know. Like we are here, we are real people, and we will read it. Rune, do you have any other ways for them to contact you?
so everything is in the description. If you're listening on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, in the description of the video, there will be links for everything from our Facebook to our Twitter, all social medias. There will be a link to the YouTube channel in of itself to where you can leave comments and everything like that. We do check through them, we do read them. We're always open for discussion, even if you disagree with us and you're very opinionated. It's a safe space to actually talk, and as long as we're not attacking each other with comments and everything, it's a safe space to talk and let your
Yes,
voice be heard.
I will say this topic does seem to be
Heated.
a diversive one, even though I feel like it's just a matter of allowing people to feel like human beings. Um, Now you just to uh establish, you said everything is in the links in the
Yes.
video. If
Also
somebody
on the
did not
podcast,
want
if
to,
you're listening, whether you're listening or watching, the description that's down below that tells you what the podcast episode is about, and even on the actual card for the podcast itself, all of our social media links are there.
if somebody is not able to click, if they were to go to YouTube, what channel are we on?
So this particular YouTube or podcast is on the Ryunn Eldred YouTube channel, which is RYUNNELDRED. You go there, you'll absolutely find me because the tag thing is a picture of my face. So
For those of you listening who have not seen Rune, he is a bald white guy. Okay.
thank you, thank you.
Now that we have established that, for those who don't want to click on links, which I don't blame you if you don't want to click on a link.
Well, I mean, even then, if you're listening, because I know like Spotify and other things, they have a comment section while you're listening, so you could directly comment to the podcast.
I have never seen a comment section on Spotify.
Oh, yeah, they have it when you're listening to podcasts because I've left comments on multiple podcasts before, one of
Gotcha.
which is Distractable.
So, circling
So
back now.
I've
So, sorry about
done
that
it
little tangent
personally.
there. Thank you guys for bearing with me there. I
And
just wanted to make
also,
sure that your guys' voice is also heard.
if you're wanting a more private like messaging thing, which I could get, especially when it comes to this topic on wanting to put your opinion out there, because there's always going to be somebody that disagrees with you, and there's always going to be those people that disagree with you to an extreme degree. Um, if you do click the links, YouTube, I know for a fact, has a business inquiry where it will give you the email that's used for the YouTube channel. You can feel free to email there. I do check my email regularly, and it's always a safe space topic for discussion. Because again, the most important thing is feeling included, feeling human. And I know having family members that identify out of tradition, because as David mentioned earlier, we both came from a family where this was looked at as taboo. If and so I get it. I have an older brother that identifies as gay, non-binary. I think I haven't talked to him in a while because of family issues, but it's like I
Right.
get it. I understand, and like I sympathize with people who have to feel secluded and isolated because of family looking down upon them over these instances. But
Yes.
to the focal point of what the podcast was, because what we were talking about was the representation within video games, inclusive game design, and all that, and how we felt about it, because the whole topic was brought up due to Veilguard and the inclusiveness and storytelling that revolves around that. So,
Truth be told, the whole conversation started because an article had popped up and I had read the title to you and I said, "Can you believe that people are upset?" Which, if you're not catching what I'm implying, the fact that people are upset bothers me because I just why why are you bothered by being inclusive, you know?
when you're reading an
As
article,
much.
or something about a new product, and people are focusing not on like the narrative we'll use Veilguard for an example. I have heard more about the inclusive game design than I have about the storytelling and narrative, about character growth, gameplay mechanics. I've heard more about the one feature of the fact that at the very beginning of the game, when you're creating a character, they allow you to select what gender and what your pronouns are, than I have heard about the entirety of the game in of itself. Which
Yeah,
is what I feel like both of us kind of have a problem with.
like if you're gonna judge a game, judge it by the story it has. If it's just a multiplayer, just like a Apex or a Fortnite or an Overwatch, where yes, there is a story, but it's not too critical and it's just more of going out, just trying to, be the best. Um, Jesus Christ, where was I going with that one, Tim?
Oh no, you're the one that went on the tangent.
Oh my God. Okay, yeah, no, if you're gonna judge a game, I remember now. If you're gonna judge a game, judge it by the gameplay. Judge it by the narrative. If it has a narrative, that's where I was going with that one. Sorry, guys. It's 11 o'clock at night, and I've had a very long day. Um, don't judge it on, hey, does your character identify as a guy? Does it identify as a girl? Do does your character identify as a they? Which I don't know if it was an option or not. I've never played Veilguard. I don't I don't feel like you should get stuck up on that one selection. Like why does somebody getting the opportunity to identify themselves and feel more included in the game and being able to put more of themselves in the game, why would that be the thing that ruins this game for you, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, the whole conversation started because I was reading that to you, and then uh Max was in the party and wanted to say something about it, and it turned into an hour and a half discussion.
Not nearly as long as the one here, but
No. So again, if this does seem a bit short, it's because Rune and I have had this conversation once before.
we've had this conversation once before, and it was a conversation that I thoroughly enjoyed because I do find representation in media like that, especially when it comes to just the game development aspect of it all. Because again, I've been very vocal about it. I wanted to be a game developer and make games. And I feel like with the role playing genre, the whole point of a RPG is to insert yourself into the role.
Right.
And when you have an open world fantasy RPG, you should be able to customize your character out to your heart's content and how
Hmm.
you feel. So I think having inclusive game design is very important. I think having diversity between characters, like something I wish Mass Effect would do that I really, really love about Dragon Age is the character creation in Dragon Age is diverse. And Dragon Age Origins, Inquisition, and Veilguard. I'll leave out two, because in two, the only options you had were male or female, and then what class you were.
Right.
But even in two, where you either was a male or a female, your class was a huge representation of what your storytelling was going to be.
Right.
If you were a male or female warrior, your story was going to be vastly different than if you played as a male or female mage. Because the whole point of Dragon Age 2 is the mage suppression.
Right.
The whole entire boil point of the game is the mages are being fed up with the Templars, keeping them in cages. And that it's a boil point which led to a huge rebellion that Inquisition quickly, hastily, like ended the war in like Act 1 of the game.
Hmm.
But you get two different story perspectives. And I feel like that's the great thing about diversity, because with Inquisition, you are the Inquisitor, you're the leader of this force. The entire Thetis Dragon Age setting looks down upon elves, but the entire story of Inquisition is very elven narrative. You're dealing with the elven gods of old before the humans came to Thetis and everything. Being an elven is going to give you a vastly different story than if you are just a human. Same thing with as dwarf, like the first Dragon Age game dealt with dwarfs and it was very heavy focused on Ozamar, the dwarven homeworld, and deciding what the ruling and the government of Ozamar was going to be like. Granted, there was like the fifth blight and everything you had to deal with, which was the overall theme. But politically in the game, you were dealing with what the dwarves were going to have to go through the rest of the series,
Hmm.
which every game afterwards has had an impact from the choice of who you pick to rule Ozamar. Same thing within 2. If you chose to side with mages, mages have an upper hand in the war. If you chose to go against mages, Templars had the upper hand when it came to the narrative storytelling and Inquisition. And then with Inquisition, how you felt about Solus and like whether or not you sympathized with him. If you wrote, like, the simple fact that if you romance Solus as a female elf, your story was greatly enhanced because it gave you this hidden side. Because with every other race or background of what your character chose, you could not get Stolas's perspective on why he is going to do what he's going to do. You only get that by meeting a certain diversity in your character's creation, which I highly recommend anybody who's going to play through it play as a female elf in Romance Solus. It makes the story so much better. And it's the same thing with Velgard, even though Velgard has mentioned particularly it doesn't really matter what you pick because it's what you are going to be represented in. I'm still going with like an elven because I feel like the game is focused very much like racially on the elven class and race. Whereas like I could go human, Canary, dwarf, whatever. Having the options and the selection just overall enhances kind of storytelling. And for me personally, it draws me in more when I can build my character based off of my own preference, my own
Right.
diversity.
Right.
Because I mean, when you look at games, but clichély, most protagonists are
Straight white
male,
dudes.
straight white dudes. So having the diversity in characters of whether they're male, female, Caucasian, African, Chinese, whatever the diverse selection for that game is, it's always better when you have something that's more inclusive. And that is my official standpoint as like a inspiring game developer. Like if I were to make a game where you had character creation, I would want all those aspects in there because I would want to reach as much of a targeted audience as I could, which is what I definitely absolutely felt that BioWare was trying to do with Velgard. They wanted to draw in as many people of different race, creed, everything.
Right. And I do wholeheartedly agree with you. So I'm just going to simply say ditto.
Ditto. But yeah, I
Sorry.
guess this was our
Was making sure that the wife wasn't trying to get into the room.
that's all good. So I think this officially marks the shortest podcast episode for R&R with being at like about
Well,
40
okay, so
minutes.
we we will we'll expand it a little bit, right?
Well, I mean, I feel
You've
personally
been
we
solely you've been which granted the whole conversation started because of Veilguard. One thing that we also need to talk about is how these options of being able to customize your characters and play it as you wish has also led to some franchises being very popular. Specifically, I'm talking about like Fallout.
yeah.
The early Fallouts, your character was not voiced. So you would make this character as you saw fit, give it the stats that you saw fit, and then the character's voice was your voice, which I feel just wholeheartedly takes the inclusivity of it's including you in the game. It is every bit of you as much as the game design allowed in the aspect of maybe you want your hair to look one specific way, but the hair options don't quite align with what you want.
I don't mean to snarkle at all, but like you just mentioning hair design reminds me of like one of the articles I did read about Veilguard beforehand because they went all out on the hair customization. So it's like it's one of the biggest prominent feature or not biggest prominent features in the character development, but they definitely enhanced it throughout the four titles.
Right.
Which I will
So,
say, as a bald person, as a person with no hair,
but you're not fully bald, actually. You do have hair.
I
It's just
do have
very
hair.
short.
I do. I keep the sides and the back of my luscious locks very short. But like
But you
having the
see, you
having the
get
ability to have a really good looking hair, and it wasn't until I made the character last night in Veilguard, I didn't realize how important it is because more normally when I make a character, I go bald. I either go bald or I go with the kind of haircut I had back in my early days where it was just the hair up top, all nice and decked out.
we'll discuss your previous hair choices at a later date. Uh,
Ah, okay.
I would not classify that as the best choice of hair for you, but
Oh no, it definitely wasn't the best choice of hair for me, but I mean my game characters whenever I'm
yeah.
creating a avatar of myself in whatever I'm playing.
You know, I can't help but feel like one of the games that we played recently, I got to see an older version of you. Hmm, I guess that'll just be our little story,
Oh,
wouldn't it?
oh yeah, it would be our story, huh? God, you
Yeah.
remember those days? As I do an imaginary hair flip.
Oh God.
2014 to our 2014 rune was some different. We don't talk about 2014 rune. Well, technically 2013 if we're going by narrative choice, but you know, that's
Yeah.
our story to tell.
And maybe you'll hear about our story soon. I don't
Maybe, hopefully, one day. Whenever I get to editing that.
know.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I feel like anything we say now is pretty much for mine and your sake. We're beating around the same bush,
Oh, I'm
metaphorically
pretty
speaking.
sure we're not beating around the bush. We've hit the nail on the head on this one.
I feel like anything
If you guys have not gathered it, we are all for inclusivity.
we're pro inclusive game design. And that's more than just being inclusive game. It's as he said in general inclusivity. But yeah, I felt like this was needing a quick topic that I know we both could talk about. I felt like this was a good one and definitely needed a more serious podcast topic compared to our previous ones,
I
which I do want to preference.
I don't know if me and you had to have this discussion
We didn't
again.
have to. We absolutely did not have to. This was purely me wanting to. And like,
You saw the ability to have content and you took it. I get
God, don't word it like that. That sounds horrible.
it. It does sound horrible.
It does
Well,
sound horrible,
when you
but
told me what you wanted to talk about, I'm like, is he really just doing this for content right now? Because we had this
it's a
conversation.
healthy mix of both because we had the conversation not reluctantly. We had the conversation because it was just we're all playing Call of Duty and it just happened to be what we talked about as we played, but it was something that after because quite literally since Halloween, since the game came out, it's been the one thing I've seen reviewed about the game. I've quite literally not seen anything else about Dragon Age Veilguard. And
Hmm.
when I think about that, I've never heard anything about it when it came to Cyberpunk, which Cyberpunk fully shows nudity
Oh
and
yeah.
everything. And I haven't seen anything about it with Sims, which is a life simulator, which I figure if somebody's going to talk diversity and inclusivity in a video game, it would be Sims because you're literally making your own avatar in the game. But it's
Right.
understandable to be in Sims. But I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint how I actually want or like what I want to say about it because I mean we both have the same viewpoint. So it's not like there's an argument going on to where we're debating anything.
Right.
But at the same time, it is definitely something that I felt should be talked about because, we're a gaming channel. Not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily is our podcast a game focused podcast. The R&R will talk about anything that strikes our mind for a topic of conversation. And this has just been something I've been thinking about. Outside of just making content on it, it's just something that's been on my mind. Mainly because I can't like open up Facebook or open up like the Internet Explorer on my phone without seeing some article talking about either the pros or the cons of the said concept.
Mm-hmm.
But I know inclusivity is a very big topic for people. I know it's a topic that kind of hits home for a lot of people, especially those of whom who feel repressed in their representation of it all. And the one main true purpose of this episode has been to pretty much just say that like inclusivity is a good thing and that there should be more representation. There should be more availability in people's choice to consume products that include diversity.
Right.
Because all it does is it makes more people feel included. It builds a community.
Indeed.
And one of the biggest things in life is having a community to belong to where you don't feel segregated, where you don't feel like an outcast. So
Well said.
even though me and you have had the conversation before, it was well needed for this. Because I mean, granted, a majority of our group are straight white males, but majority of us feel the same way. Majority of us have dealt with like the darker side of diversity and seen like the harm that segregating, whether it's through race, through orientation or whatever, we've seen the darker side of that and we've seen what it does to people.
Yes.
So it is important to me at least to let people know that there is safe places. So yeah, that was the overall purpose of this for anybody who is listening, wondering on what our intentions were. Outside of just wanting to be a game developer and being very passionate about the topic, especially for role playing games, it's just we want to provide that safe space to talk, safe space for people to feel included. And I feel like
Indeed.
with that being said, it really rounds out the ending of today's episode.
You guys are all humans, and we appreciate you.
With that being
With,
said, if you
with
guys are
that being
watching on
said,
YouTube, if you guys are watching on YouTube, click the in-screen annotation at the end of the video to be taken to previous R&R podcast episodes. They're not as heavy-hearted as this one is here. Um, I know at the very beginning of the playlist, it's me and Mr. Retro doing games like Battleship, talking about New Year's resolutions for this year. Nothing was met, nothing was completed, but you know what? We're here. I got Razgriz the BossFoss with me now as the other R. We're
boy,
going to be going through some changes in the coming weeks as I prepare for the new year.
changes. Gonna
Going
face
through
the
changes.
changes.
Um, if you guys are listening on any of your podcast listening applications, go ahead and follow us. We look forward to raising the viewership and seeing what you guys want to hear us talk about, hearing your opinions on everything. I even though I know this is going to be a very diverse topic and there is the room for a lot of hate and a lot of just negative stuff coming from this, I am very open to reading, discussing, talking about everybody's opinion because we all have a voice
We all have a voice. That being said, please be respectful.
of
If
other
you do,
people.
of other people, if you do come into the comments and you see somebody is not fully aligning with your own views or just outright against your views,
You can be as rude as you want to us, but please respect the opinions and the what's the word I'm looking for? The opinions and the I'm drawing a blank on the word.
Not sure what
feelings
you're.
of other people.
And in the terms, to layman terms, don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. And thank you guys so much for listening to today's R&R topic on inclusive game design. We will see you
Hashtag.
next week for whatever topic we decide to talk about, which will probably not be as heavy-hearted as this one.
Hashtag don't be a dick.
Hashtag don't be a dick.
All right. Good night,
Next
guys.
week's hashtag is no, never mind. Toodaloo, everybody.